Hello and welcome to episode 173 of First Geek 411. I'm your host, Cameron Franklin, and with me, as always, is my best man, Chris Nicolay. Chris, how you doing today?
Hello, and not too bad. I'm frazzled. I'm all over the place.
Frazzle dazzled.
Frazzle dazzle.
Also joining us, we have Emma. How are you doing?
Not complaining one little bit. Been having a pretty good week.
Nice. And then from the Great White North, Janine, how are you doing today?
Too bad.
This week we got Loki, we got Tiger King, which must I say, super hyped is still in the news. We got Dongle news, and then we got Cruella. Then we'll be wrapping up with our best adaptations from one media type to another. Before we get into that, listeners, as always, you can find us on our social media as OneGeek411. You can join our Discord server if you want to hang out with us between episodes and send us an email at 1stgeek411@gmail.com. You can also find our show notes on our website, onegeek411.com. You can watch live Monday nights, 6:45 Mountain Time on twitch.tv/onegeek411. Be part of that post-show chat. And you can find, comment, like, subscribe, all that stuff over on our YouTube. You can also rate and subscribe wherever it is that you listen to podcasts, and then find our merch over at our Redbubble store. With that said, let's jump into our favorite things from this week. Chris, why don't you start us off?
So this week I haven't been up too much, although I did notice that the final season of Kim's Convenience was on Netflix, so I get to finally start getting caught up to Shanine. And so far I definitely agree. This does not feel like a final season as it proceeds. So I'm not sure how it's going to proceed to the final episode, but more thoughts to come on that.
Janine just gets like the deer in the headlight.
It's okay.
Let me tell you, it comes out of nowhere.
It does indeed proceed to an episode.
Yeah, I'm so skeptical now that I know more than I should starting it. But also the Netflix Sailor Moon part 1 and 2 movie thing is up on Netflix, so I started that. Put that on in the background. I'll have to probably start it over, but I've watched part 1 officially. And it's definitely Sailor Moon.
Is all Sailor Moon like canonical? Like in the same universe of like, or is it like alternate retellings and stuff like that?
I have no idea. I don't know enough about Sailor Moon. So I what I do know is like, so the original 90s Sailor Moon, and then they had Sailor Moon Crystal, which was a mirror, just kind of updated, new voice acting, new certain things with Sailor Moon. But it was the same plot line, kind of new art and new things, but that was just literally a retelling. In terms of movies, I don't know how those work. Typically OVAs are going to be kind of a more of a continuation, or they take place in a specific part that isn't further explained in the series.
You kind of, or you get like the mind wipe thing at the end or something like that of like, all this happened and it's canon, but no one remembers.
Yeah.
Right. Or it's like, we reference this, but now we're going to actually tell the story. It's referenced in the series, but it deserved its own kind of movie. So that's what OVA, original video adaptation, is for. So, I mean, lots of animes do them, especially if they are bigger. They'll take a minor plot line and make it a more major plot line. But yeah, that's about it. Took the motorcycle out this weekend a couple times.
Can you do a flip yet?
Yeah, not a dirt bike.
Not with that attitude.
Never gonna try. I don't like wasting that much money.
Probably fair.
You just got to get Keanu to sponsor the podcast.
Yeah.
So we can get one of his bikes.
Yeah.
Not necessarily my style, but I'd take a free one.
Janine, what have you been up to?
All right. Well, speaking of anime, We've almost finished the 3rd season of Attack on Titan.
Woo woo.
Nice.
So this is like the fastest I've ever watched an anime. I think we're really ripping through it.
Good thing you were done watching anime.
Yep.
And then
Yeah,
straight
I
into
don't
the
know.
next one.
It's so good. I don't know. This one doesn't feel like there's not as much filler. And I feel like I've watched many animes with a lot of
Too
filler.
much filler.
I feel like the
Too
animes you
much
watch
filler.
though are like the epic shonens, which have to do fillers because they're gonna fill 1,000 episodes. Whereas Attack on Titan is a very linear story and it's being told in 4 seasons. So
Yeah,
or 5.
Yeah. 4.
Stop.
something like
4.
that.
4.
Something within that range.
When they do the split seasons, I always get confused on how they're numbering things. But yeah, like whereas Attack on Titan's being provided in a we have this many seasons, this is what you're getting. We're gonna conclude everything. Whereas like Fairy Tail and One Piece are all well, the manga's still going, but we're caught up, so here's some filler. Until the manga can get ahead, and then we're gonna catch up again, and that's where so much.
So
filler
they
comes in.
didn't pull a Game of Thrones where they just sort of
just
push
end it.
far ahead and then just stop.
That's Hunter x Hunter. But yeah, I mean, sometimes some animes do that. That happened with. So obviously, Hunter x Hunter. I like several things. Like some animes will catch up to the manga, burst ahead, and then things are too different that it dies. Like Bleach. I think Bleach is one. Where that happened. But yeah, Attack on Titan is just, so good.
It's so good. I'm so invested in all of the characters, and it makes me very stressed out because we have had some big reveals that have been very shocking.
I've only seen season 1 and I'd like to continue watching it.
Yeah, I'm not going to say
At
anything.
some point.
Like, knowing that there's twists is not a spoiler.
Yeah,
for
I
Attack
mean
on
that's
Titan.
gonna
I mean,
be the case
considering
with
the
pretty
first
much
season.
anything out there.
Considering the first season, it's expected that there's going to be twists.
Yeah.
No, I won't say anything, but like I've just been shocked so many times, and I keep making predictions, and they have pretty much all been wrong. I'm like, okay,
Okay, fine.
it's not gonna stop me, but
How can you not make predictions? It's just like you're trying to figure things out based on what they give you, but
I am.
they're also really good at leading you in a direction and then being like, just kidding.
Psych
Mhm.
wires.
No, it's great, and I think they pace it super well too, so it feels like you're trying to solve it with them, and
nice.
then like they make a new discovery, and you're like, everyone's like, we never saw that coming all together, and it's I like it. I also finished reading A Circle of Quiet by Madeline L'Engle, and it's a nonfiction, and it's probably the first nonfiction that has made it into like my top 10 list. So
Nice.
it was so good.
What is it about?
So
Besides A Circle of Quiet.
it's part of a series of her journals. Basically, she's taking like excerpts of her journals and like reflecting on her life and the world and stuff. And so it's a lot of her life story, but not necessarily in order, and just kind of how that connects with faith and writing and just life in the world. And it's so good. And just like everything she says, I'm like, yes, that's it. Yes. It's so good. I couldn't recommend it more. It didn't feel like reading a nonfiction. Like, it was just so good. And Raya and the Last Dragon came to open access, so we finally got to watch it, and it was okay. I did not
That's
love
what
it.
I've heard.
It was cute, and it looked nice, and I like seeing like the different culture and all that, but it wasn't an instant classic for me.
Yep. That's kind of how I felt with it too. Of it's like I really enjoyed it and I thought it was a good movie, but it kind of doesn't have that one. I don't know, like that one
Spark.
moment that is like
It
the
doesn't have
iconic scene.
Spark. Yeah,
I haven't seen it yet, so
neither have I. So
Emma, what have you been up to this past week?
let's see. What have I been up to? I finished Uncharted 2. Yay.
Great game.
Yeah, great game. Really enjoyed it. And promptly went and started Uncharted 3.
Better game. People can
Yeah.
at me.
I've been working through my backlog of games that I either started and hadn't finished or hadn't started at all. So I've say that's pretty good progress. Started reading our book club book. Not All Who Wander Spiritually Are Lost. I'm maybe 20 pages in, but I've been reading it pretty slowly, so
I have
it's
mine.
pretty good so far. Same copy.
Same cover buddies.
Same cover buddy. I got a job this summer or for the summer this afternoon /
Nice.
today.
Yay!
It's a day camp counselor thing. The people emailed me this morning and was like, "Hey, want to interview?" And I was like, "Sure." Surprise! And then I got a job, so that was nice. So now I am going to be earning income, which is good. And then I started watching Sweet Tooth on Netflix, and I haven't finished episode 1 yet, but I'm enjoying it so far, and it's a unique concept.
Yeah, what is it
for-
about?
So it's basically like there's a mysterious like disease that shows up, which is pretty normal, typical for like futuristic whatever. But along with this disease that wipes through the population come what they call hybrids. So humans who are born merged with different animals. And there's this little boy who's the way they present it is the relationship is his dad, but it hasn't been stated that he's actually his dad. But anyway, basically whisks him away to hide in the forest, and then something happens. I just got like the part in episode 1 that I stopped at was like this guy comes into their forest hideaway thing, and the way it's going, I have a feeling the dad's gonna like get killed or something, and this boy who's now like 8 or 9 has to go out into the world, and all these hybrids are being hunted essentially. Like everyone is scared of them. So, but it's super interesting so far, and it's a fun concept of like this disease isn't the biggest concern. It's these hybrids essentially that come with the disease, and no one really knows how they're connected. So yeah,
So they now
that's
must
what
live in a world that hates and fears them.
yes.
Let me know what you think. I've heard a lot of people talking about it, but it's one that like I just like hadn't heard much of,
Yeah,
other than
I
like some
hadn't
like
heard
initial
much
buzz.
either. So I just was. I mean, the ads and trailers and stuff seemed pretty interesting, and of course, me being the person who's like, "Ooh, animals." That's an interesting concept with human animal combinations. Let's see where this goes. So, yeah.
So for me, I was able to get back into streaming some more God of War this past Sunday. Turns out, when you don't play a game for 2 weeks, you forget a lot about how it plays. And so the first like I kind of stopped like right in the middle of a puzzle too, which goes back to like a conversation that we'd had on a previous week. where like I just needed to find something, and it wasn't like necessarily hard to find, but it had been long enough that like I didn't remember like specifically which areas I'd come from, like where I needed to get to, things like that. But it was great. It was good getting back in. Made some good progress. Found out who some characters are. Plot twist: if they're a major character, they're probably a Norse god. Like,
What?
Surprise!
yeah, like it's one of those that like the twist was one of the characters is Freya, and it's like the least surprising thing that this character is Freya.
Yeah.
And so I've been back on that. Looking forward to playing some more. The game's amazing. The more I play, I think the more I'm enjoying it. I could really kind of go without the equipment system. It's one of those that I kind of just feel like if you would just give me the gear and just be like, yep, here's a better weapon, or here's the upgrade for your weapon. It's better now, rather than making me like sit through menus and stuff. But maybe that's just because I'm streaming, and that's just not necessarily what I want to do on stream. Maybe that's more of what the issue is, and I need to just do all of that before I start. I don't know. And then after recommendations of a certain co-host, I started Subnautica. I proceeded to very quickly drown. But you know, I've been having a lot of fun. I think my biggest complaint, especially for now, like where I'm at now in the story, it feels like I don't necessarily have a great reason to continue. Like I know what I'm supposed to do, like because I fixed fixed air quotes the Aurora, so it's no longer like leaking radiation. But then like in terms of like my next objective, it's just kind of like, okay, I guess I'll go do
There's more
this.
stuff to do.
Right. But it's just like I just don't know from the character's perspective. I don't know why they would want to risk all these things to go get that, to go do all this other stuff.
Yeah.
Now, granted, I also, haven't read through all of the PDAs that I've picked up. So that probably contributes to me not knowing why I'm doing things, but I have some stuff I need to go find. But like, it's one of those that, that is just kind of just out there enough that I'm like, I'm not sure I would like, especially this, or I also will say this as me who doesn't like swimming. And so like, is very afraid of drowning and getting destroyed by giant monsters in the sea.
Yeah.
And so
that's fair.
Yeah. So for me, like we're staying in the shallows, cooking these fish in this fabricator. We're good to go. Seems like a great life for me.
You're just going to live right there.
Yeah. But I am really enjoying it.
Which, hey, is a valid option.
Right. Like there's a little like island I could just go live on, like kill the weird crab things and
game over.
Go.
Game's done.
Yeah.
That check.
Like, surprise, it's actually a farming sim.
Yeah. Which like legitimately with the way the game is set up is a valid way to play the game. Yeah. You can just do that for hours on end and like that's fine. I do have friends who play it that way and just treat it as a farming sim and like that's it.
Yeah.
But then there's me who's like, I'm gonna be terrified, but yes, I want to go into the 1,000 meters down and try to avoid the big scary things. So
it is what it is. I've gotten a little bit of the tease, or some more of the teases for what's going on the planet, and so I'll probably talk about those a little bit more in chat the next time in my streams. Because I think you are ahead of me.
I haven't fixed the Aurora yet, but that's just like really because it's an open world survival. You can really do things on your own schedule. Mm-hmm. So
yeah, that was mine. It was like, you got to fix the Aurora within the next 24 hours. And I was like, that seems excessive.
Yeah. I mean, I haven't done it yet, which has been a little bit irritating on my part because of the radiation. Like, I have to keep alternating between rebreather and radiation.
Yeah.
Whatever, but yeah.
But then other than that, went to the theater for the first time since Chadwick passed away. and we saw Cruella. And gotta say, I really enjoyed it. Maybe a part of that is that I've just been so hyped to go back to the theater.
Yeah.
Maybe that's because there weren't kids screaming and kicking things.
What?
Maybe, like, I don't
Did
know.
you even go to the theater then?
But yeah, so we'll talk a little bit more about Cruella later on, but I did really enjoy it. I like the take. I definitely have some questions. Like, it's one of those, like, we had a little bit of the chat about it with Greg in the Discord, I think Saturday night. But yeah, like, there's definitely some questions that get raised about it, but I really enjoyed it. And so, have y'all had a chance to see it yet?
Nope.
I'm not forking out an additional $30
Yeah.
on top of my subscription to watch a movie that
That's why you go to the theater.
I'm not going to go to the theater because I have no one to go with, and it's so much less fun to go to a movie by yourself.
Are you? I love going to the movies by myself.
Too. I'm still not 100% sure if theaters are open here yet. So,
Touche.
See, I'm the type of person who likes to go to theaters with friends. Like, that's just
Why? You can't. You shouldn't be talking. So I don't know why
Bet
people.
you
need
don't
to
know
be
my
there.
life.
my best friend and I have a tendency to whisper
I said
quietly to
shouldn't
ourselves
be.
commentary
Quietly.
during movies. And then we will typically before or after go to Hot Topic because that's our thing. It's like our friend date. We go to Hot Topic and see a movie and have dinner and then criticize the movie to every single extent. So it's like movie theaters are a friend thing for me.
I like to go just sit in the back row with my large popcorn and large cherry Coke. No one else eating it, just me, and then go get it refilled. Yeah. It's an experience.
I feel like I've talked about this before, but my whole thing with theaters is you get what you pay for. So, like, are we at the Draft House for a premiere? Silence, no talking. Are we at the Dollar Theater? Everything's Mystery Science Theater 3000. Doesn't matter. You paid $1. Deal with it.
We don't have a dollar theater, so we just got the Cinemark, the 10plex.
Yeah.
No, I think I don't know. And then we got the Myrna, which is depending. It's probably an event. It's probably the Big Lebowski, and I'm probably a little drunk or a little tipsy.
What a boys movie that is. Such a boys movie.
But they have a special event there, and it's fun going. Also, like, yeah, it's you get a large popcorn and 2 adult beverages for like $8.
I mean, it sounds like a blast.
Yeah.
Wonderful, wonderful.
Not gonna
theater.
lie. Never did that while I was there.
It's a good time. I wonder if they're gonna do it this year. Probably. Think all of our normal summer things are happening. I think. I don't know.
Gotta believe.
But yeah. Just show up in a robe. That's all you got to do for that. Nice little block party.
Let's go ahead and jump into our discussion topics for this week. Chris, why don't you start us off?
So, first things is, granted, like, I think this is probably a leak or an accidental posting, but up on Amazon, we did get a quick preview of the 2 next coming out later this fall. Next D&D settings. Wild Beyond the Witchlight, which is going to be based in the Feywild, which will be super interesting. We haven't seen a ton take place there. Obviously, we get Fey creatures and everything in the primary setting, but
I can't wait to not be able to deal damage to any of them.
Except for me.
And then obviously we're getting the next magic iteration in the D&D setting, which is the Curriculum of Chaos, which is the Strixhaven setting, which I'm looking really forward to just because of all the new, like, possible casting things they're going to do with it. All the different...
Give me some archaeology magic.
Right?
I want my scroll machine gun.
Right? Question is, what class are you going to give that to?
Every class, Chris.
All of classes.
All of
Everyone.
Every
It's just
class with a scroll
It's
machine.
like the weirdest
Every
combination
class.
ever.
It's because it's just a scroll. It's like you don't
Yeah,
actually have to
it's
use magic to use
just
it.
a weapon. You can carry.
It's actually just a weapon you can carry. It's breaking the entire game. Give a scroll machine gun to all your characters and never be able to do anything against them.
I will say the thing that makes me kind of sad about Curriculum of Chaos is that with us going back to Innistrad this fall, this means that there most likely will not be an official Innistrad tie-in.
It'll probably be like an Unearthed Arcana thing that further builds off what they currently have in Unearthed Arcana from.
Yeah.
Innistrad,
Like, granted, we do have like Curse of Strahd, and they've been pushing that, and that's like similar vibes with like vampires and stuff like that. But I was kind of hoping for like, especially with Brandon Sanderson's book, I guess like 2 years ago, whenever that was, I was hoping that they would flesh out more of Innistrad. But
they might still, with the success that they've been having and stuff, they might just try to do more. But I wouldn't get my hopes up too much. But that's but it's springtime, which means there's a lot of tech news. So I'll be mostly talking about the dongle news.
It's been so long.
It's been so long. We haven't done that in a long time. First things first, obviously, kind of the pertinent stuff for us as consumers is Apple did have their Worldwide Developers Conference, I think, WWDC. I can't remember what it stands for, but it is predominantly their news outlet for kind of what's happening on their devices, and kind of directing showing their developers, possible developers, what the new capabilities are. And so we're getting updates to obviously the iPad devices and their services, with shared like cursor and device like touchpad sharing. I'm confused, but they are doing a lot. It will be reading all the text in your photos.
No danger, Will Robinson.
But yeah, iOS 15 is adding some updates, improvements to FaceTime. Do we have any Apple users out of any of us?
I mean, me, but because my school requires a Mac.
But that's your Mac. That's you're not a iPhone or.
Oh, I am also an iPhone. Yes.
Okay, so I mean, predominantly for WWDC, you are going to be seeing mostly their mobile platform updates, because the Mac updates all have their own. They have their own event. So iOS 15 is updating FaceTime, notifications, and more, which is something that a lot of Apple users have been requesting. Are notification updates. More control over your notifications is the biggest thing. I don't feel like any platform has notifications done right yet. I hate notifications. Just turn them all off. If only. They are building video and music sharing in the FaceTime. So that's going to be interesting.
It seems like somewhere you're going to have a very specific set of songs you're allowed to use.
Right.
And then you can add other songs, then you just got instantly get DMCA'd.
Well, since it's you're not streaming it. It's just so you're on a FaceTime call, you can share what you're listening and watching with the person you're on FaceTime with. Is my understanding. So I mean, I think obviously it's just based on rights to the streaming service, and I'm assuming it has to be you're going to be exclusively using Apple Music for it. I'm not sure other services like Spotify or anything is going to be compatible. But yes, they are using AI to read all of your text and your pictures. A little weird.
Very weird.
But they are pushing more security features and possibly adding legitimate identifier options, so you can possibly use your iPhone as an ID because it'll have actually been verified for use. Granted, I don't know. I don't know how this is going to look like in like airports and
Yeah.
like other travel services. Obviously,
I'm a little old-fashioned
international
in
travel is
that
going to be a whole
regard.
other thing. But I mean, like in terms of like if the real ID stuff, I think that it would suffice for like domestic travel instead of having once you have your real ID and things like that. For those of us in the U.S. That understands what I'm saying. Sorry, Shanine. You're going to now be able to drop widgets on the home screen, which is apparently something you haven't been able to do on iPads.
Wow.
Really?
But it's available on iPhones.
I don't know. Okay, this
Is like
I'm
this
not
is
a-
Chris as not a Apple user reading things.
It's like
and
I
being
didn't
like,
realize
is
this wasn't a
what this
thing
means?
because this is a thing on everything I own. But websites I've been reading, like Apple rumors and everything, have been making a big deal about this because this is something they've been asking for.
Do y'all use widgets on your home screen on your phone?
Like weather and other things and my search bar and stuff? I have quick access points there.
I've never liked using them.
I
like
have
they're-
a couple, but I like the only two I have are my music and my like screen time, whatever analysis.
On my tablet, I have like quick launch stuff for like my tablet, like for the actual drawing app and stuff, and like note taking for the pencil. But that's just on the tablet. But
I'm more of the folder type of person, where I just put similar items into folders and go from there.
yeah, it just depends. Like there's some very useful widgets, but I mean like it depends on how active of a user you are too. But like yeah, like I keep note apps always ready and stuff, and some news pieces and stuff. I don't know. It just depends. But other things, I forget. Apple's iCloud Plus is going to be bundled with a VPN, private email, and HomeKit camera storage. So that's big for Apple users in terms of smart home utilization, as well as obviously Apple becoming kind of pushing that more privacy centric piece, with the exception of obviously reading text on your pictures.
Here's privacy as long as we get to read all of your information.
Yeah.
New Watch OS stuff. There were rumors about a possible like independent home OS service, but it doesn't look like that's gonna happen. Although Siri is coming to third-party accessories and will be usable offline. I don't know. Siri sucks.
I never use Siri, so I have no opinion.
Yeah. Safari is getting a redesign with tab groups and stuff. So following in Chrome's kind of footsteps, again, being able to sort tabs into categories, bring out a little more efficiency. Kind of cool stuff. Nothing that, but doesn't look like still no updates to possible use of USB-C instead of lightning cable. Sorry, guys.
Yep. Come on, Mac. I don't want to buy your whatever.
It's how they get you. It's how they get you.
I
But
may switch over at my next phone upgrade or whatever.
kind of the big tech news that's been in a lot of talks is there's a lot of advancements that will be made in the next few years. And I know we've there's obviously been speculations. But first off, what is everyone's favorite way to travel?
I mean, it depends on where I'm going.
My own imagination.
Your own imagination.
Because I enjoy road trips, but I also like just going somewhere via plane and like enjoying that place. So it kind of depends on the intention of my trip.
Okay.
I like both via ground and air.
I'm definitely more of a ground person. I love road trips. I fly out of necessity. Speed, and obviously to make things work within time constraints because time off from work is limited.
Mm-hmm.
and I like things to be efficient. Sometimes driving is just like, it's efficient because I'm enjoying other things. So it's a good use of time when you have it available.
Yeah.
Not the
I'll say
motorcycle.
for me, I feel like I'm in the camp of like, I love flying, but I hate airports. And I love road trips, but I hate driving. So it's like, if I'm not the one driving, we'll go anywhere. But if I'm the one driving, it's like, well, I mean, here we are.
Also trains. I like trains.
Trains are fun.
You know,
Trains are a fun experience.
trains are wonderful.
Emma, what's your stance? You already gave yours.
I mean,
What's
Shani,
my stance on what?
I was going to ask about trains, and you just talked about trains.
Yep.
So here we are.
especially
like
fast
now-
trains
now it's
everywhere
awkward.
other than the U.S.
Taco taco.
Yes.
Like
I
I
don't
think
know if I've explained that before or not.
Yeah,
but-
we
think-
talked about that.
the U.S. has a great lack of trains, like for
Yeah.
transportation.
Man, the one time I tried to get out of Helena to get home for Thanksgiving, I was gonna like drive to somewhere that had
Ever?
a passenger train connection, but then there was like an avalanche along the track line, so the train was just like, we're not gonna get you there. So then I like drove to Spokane or something. It was this whole experience of just trying to get home for Thanksgiving that was just not good.
But yeah,
That
And-
involved everything except planes.
you know, something I was super hyped about in the past was possible Hyperloop. What are you doing, Elon?
Hurry up, Elon. Take us to Mars.
Take us to Mars. Or I mean, like, Elon has posed so many like fantastical travel methods. Obviously, he's proposed this SpaceX rockets as, you know, hour trips anywhere across the world. You know, you go up, orbit, comes back down, lands. He said maybe in a few years. That'd be awesome. Be cool, kind of. I don't know. I don't know what that does for everyone's bodies. It's gonna if there's gonna be health requirements to do so, but they've been working on the Hyperloop. Possibly they started the Boring Company so they can drill like tunnels for the Hyperloop as a possible like speed train and, you know, cost-effective travel. But we haven't seen a lot of those things come to fruition as of yet. But those are like changes, like big changes in the way we currently travel by rocket. What about you, Shanine? Road trips?
I like all the things. Road trips, flying, trains.
Like to go
boats.
places. Just want to go.
I'll also add, give me a Lime scooter any day.
Touche.
If I can go somewhere and save 10 minutes by scooting, all in.
I'll take a scooter if it takes me 10 extra minutes.
I love zipping around on the scooters. Like when we were in Seattle for PAX, like so many people were riding like the one wheels and stuff. And I was just like, oh man, this is where Cameron wants to be.
Yeah,
Yeah.
pretty prime.
I've done enough research. I like me and my friends might be building try to build one this summer, because we don't have Lime scooters specifically in Montana, but there's a few, like some of the college towns have like an equivalent. And then we're wondering how fast does like an electric scooter go? And they can go fast.
Yeah, gotta go fast.
If you overvolt an electric motor, turns out things can go a little crazy. But the biggest news is that possibly there might be there's a couple new companies that are starting in the airplane business, talking about the return to hypersonic flight, specifically
Oh, I
upwards
saw
of
that.
12 times the speed of sound. which
We're coming for you, Light.
New York to LA is about half an hour, hour tops. And then, an hour across the world almost, which is going to be crazy. Specifically, United Airlines has agreed to purchase like $3 billion of orders, has placed for 15 supersonic jets from Boom Supersonics.
That sounds like a fake company.
It's a real company. Their plane design is called Overture. There is also a new startup called Venus Aerospace, which is where begins testing on their hypersonic passenger planes next year. But yeah, so obviously the last hypersonic flight we had was commercial hypersonic flight, was the Concorde back in 2000, that was retired in 2003. Anybody know when the Concorde started flying?
No.
Because that plane was in the air for a long time, which means like obviously it's not a fuel efficient, because it was using kind of archaic, but it was originally, its first place was back in 1969.
Nice.
But yeah, ultimately, a lot of these newer companies believe that with new technology, they can bring back hypersonic flights with new engines and stuff, which would actually make possibly hypersonic flights being more efficient, more green than current commercial flights, and estimating that flights, international flights, could be around $100 on international flights and be anywhere on average 3 to 4 hours internationally. That would be wonderful.
That'd be very nice.
You can fly. You can make a weekend trip out of going somewhere internationally.
In 10 years.
Well, in 2025 is when they are projected to fulfill their orders, or specifically United's orders are projected to be filled in 2025. Supposedly. We'll see. I mean, obviously the technology has always been there, so we know that commercial flights at hypersonic speeds, they've existed in the past. They can exist again. But yeah, I'm ready. Weekend trip to Japan. Yeah. I'm down.
Speaking of ready, I'll go ahead and go next. This weekend, we have E3, the Electronic Entertainment Expo, where we are looking to get a whole bunch of announcements for video games and things like that. So we'll have, this is more or less just a, hey, it's happening, come check in next week when we talk more about what has happened. And so with the lack of like a formal E3 last year, I'm really excited that it is back in some capacity. And so, and then saw Cruella, like I said at the top of the show, I really enjoyed it, but based on a comment that was in our Discord, I have a question for all of us. And so this was said by I Am Not Prepared, who says, I naturally have little care for any such monster as Cruella. And so with that, the question I have for everyone is, what is the villain thing that is too far for you?
Cruella. You gotta remember, I'm very much a dog person, so anyone who even considers turning a dog into a coat is just like, nah, bro. I don't like you.
I mean, I just bought a leather jacket, so.
Well, yeah, but this is dogs we're talking about.
What's the difference?
Dogs
I
are
like
cute.
dogs.
I mean,
cute.
cows are cute.
Well, yes, but they are farm animals versus dogs. I don't know. This is
Which are our best boys.
I've always thought that was a weird differentiation, or differentiation between like horse and cattle. Like anywhere
the
else in the
biggest
world
thing
eats horse meat,
yeah.
or like I mean, a lot of some other places around the world we eat horse meat, but we
Yeah.
won't. It's like
it is a
it's a weird line to draw.
I wouldn't say it's an American thing so much as it is going back to the like historical domestication of said animals. So dogs historically, the reason they are now domesticated is because they were used as hunting partners, whereas animals like goats and cows and sheep were historically domesticated for those food and shelter byproducts. Um, so the difference there for me as someone who like studied it is it comes down to the domesticated or the reasons behind the domestication of various animals, and what the intended purpose for those animals were in the act of domesticating them. So
Right, which I mostly understand, but I just still think it's a weird line to draw. Like the hunt, like domesticated horses, strong companions, used horses for a lot, also ate them.
mm-hmm.
Shanine, do you have a villain thing that's too far?
I don't know. I'm trying to think. I feel like I sympathize with a lot of villains.
Okay, so everyone keep an eye on Shanine.
I'm right there with you, Shanine. I agree.
Find them fascinating. They're often the most fascinating characters.
Like, yeah, I feel like too much altruism in a hero is too two-dimensional. And what makes a good hero is actually a good villain.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I'll say, I mean, that's like one of the classic statements for why Batman is such a good character. It's because Batman has good villains.
Right.
Like, and that's what makes the character good. But yeah, so I'll say like for me, a big one is like things that like directly mess with young kids.
Yeah.
Like that's a big one for me of like, I'll just like nope out of stuff of like, nope, not going to watch this. Like that's one of my like almost like my deal breaker there of just like, yeah, we're skipping ahead or not watching this or whatever. That's definitely mine. That's just like, yeah, I just can't handle that. And then this kind of ties into where we just were for this follow up, but like, what are those changes like that make a like that could be made to characters without completely overriding them and still having them be those good villains? And so, for a little bit of context into that, one of the things that I really liked about Cruella is that A, they don't make her the good guy, but B, like they make her more of a vandal, and less of a dog murderer. And so, but the character still feels like the same Cruella. And so like, what are like, and maybe this is more, it would be more of like a top 3 style question. But like, if you could take a villain that you didn't like, what is something that you would want to change to make them more of a character that you would enjoy? Maybe that's a better way of wording the question I have in the notes. This might be a too deep one for right now in the middle of the episode.
Might be.
I mean, just off the top of my head, I'm more just thinking of it's basically this question in kind of reverse, but more so what villains do I enjoy because they're good characters? If that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Like Scar from Lion King is coming to mind for me because he's like cunning, but also like his own smarts become his own pitfall, downfall, whatever, like in many ways. But yeah.
I have no idea. I mean, like, if you're thinking of Scar, like, I don't think Scar was necessarily a great villain because he wasn't fully developed.
Right.
I guess we don't know enough about his
which
history.
is again like
I guess, and that's
what I was saying.
something
Like
that
it's
could
kind
be
of opposite.
Yeah.
Question, answer, whatever.
It's something that Scar could have been more fleshed out, or like a prequel would have been awesome, like to understand his history with Mufasa specifically.
Which,
that made him kind of resent him. I don't know.
His background is fleshed out a little bit more in the Broadway show than it is in the Disney movie.
Big shout out to the Broadway musical because it's amazing.
Yeah.
Let's go ahead and table that question. We can come back to it another time. Emma, what do you got for us this week?
Yeah. What do I have for us? Oh, yeah. So this is a friendly reminder for anyone who does not have it on their radar that the Loki show starts this week. Starts on Wednesday. Don't forget, set your alarms. We get the first episode Wednesday.
Which means if you're watching this on YouTube, it's out.
It's out.
Go watch Loki.
Go watch Loki. If you're
stop watching us and go watch Loki.
Yeah. Stop and go now.
But leave this running. And then come back to it and give us another view.
Yeah. And Cameron and I both saw somewhere. I saw somewhere and forgot where I saw it. That according to Kevin Feige, apparently Loki as a TV show will have a bigger impact on the MCU than other like canon TV shows so far. And by that I mean WandaVision and
the two other ones. Right. Falcon and
Winter Soldier.
Yeah.
I was gonna say Tifios, which is a completely different thing. So it's gonna have a bigger impact on the MCU than those other two so far, which from what we know of it already, which isn't a whole lot, makes some amount of sense because we've got Loki as a prisoner and dealing with timelines and stuff like that. I can see going, yeah, okay, that makes sense. But with all of that being said, and that sort of piece of information from the head of Marvel himself, does anyone have any hopes, wishes, or desires and or fears for Loki to come?
I'll say for me, one of my fears, especially after seeing that statement, is if they're going to try to just bring this Loki into the normal MCU. Where like, since this is Battle for New York Loki that got away, and that fear, like with the statement, kind of ties in a lot with what I've been worried about with the show for a while, is that we're not getting Endgame Loki. We're getting the first Avengers Loki.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people have come to love Loki's growth. And so how do you not write the character with that growth in mind and for the general fan that might be being like, oh, well, I like Loki. He was in this movie. And I'm just super confused to what that's going to look like. And so that's definitely been my biggest one.
Which sort of going off of that, it just reminded me, I did see a video or a post or something about that specifically, and how the Loki that we're getting in the show didn't have that character growth with Thor as his brother, or even Odin as like realizing that Odin did consider him as a son.
Mm-hmm.
Like Thor, like he didn't have that brotherly growth with Thor of, even though like we're on opposite sides for this scenario, we're still gonna go off and get help, which we've been doing our entire lives as brothers. Like there's still that he hasn't had that growth for that state of Loki. And you just brought in that extended point that I hadn't thought about, of like how that could impact the casual viewer and or just the state of putting that version of Loki into the current timeline, basically.
Mhm.
I just want chaos.
Yeah.
Shenanigans.
You might get that. Something tells me.
Shenanigans.
I have a feeling you're going to get all of that. Plus some Owen Wilson, actually, which
Yeah. Can't wait.
can't wait.
Yeah. Speaking of villains that I love,
Mhm.
Yeah.
I was obsessed with Loki from the beginning.
Mhm.
Yep.
So I'm very excited.
And I'll say as a hope, I want Owen Wilson's character, and maybe this is all people have already like figured this out, like the Agatha all along thing. But like, I'm really wanting Owen Wilson's character to be a big player in the future, just because I like him, and so wow. Also, if he does not say "wow" at some point in this,
I know.
I'm very upset. But yeah, I hope that he's around. I hope that they figure out a way to have that character not just be sequestered into this like time cop thing. And so
I would have never been like, oh yeah, like I'd like to see Owen Wilson in an MCU movie. But then when they were like, oh yeah, we have Owen Wilson for Loki, I was like, I never knew that was something that I needed, but I need it. So stick around, Owen Wilson, please. Don't pull a Martin Freeman and show up in the background like 3 times and then just never come up again. So
and I'll say too, with Feige's quote, the thing that I think is so weird about this is gonna be the biggest impact on the MCU compared to the other ones, is we haven't seen the impact of any of the other shows. Like, so like this isn't like a bar, like to clear. It's like, I feel like they said the same thing about like WandaVision. Like, this is gonna have a big impact on the MCU. And it's like, cool.
Well, and
no movies have come out.
Yeah.
So
we have had in WandaVision and Winter Soldier and Falcon events that when you look at them, you go, yeah, I can see how that's going to impact the MCU. Like, we've got Wanda sort of accepting the fate of Vision, but then we also have this white Vision floating around somewhere, and that's going to have an impact. And then with Falcon and Winter Soldier, we've got Sam as the new Captain America, which with the route that the MCU has gone in the past, they could easily take a more political route with that. I don't think they would, but like essentially how those two shows have ended in the past like it's easy to trace and or see how the events of those shows could lead to bigger events in the future. So it is a little bit curious in that regard. Of it feels a little open-ended because it's like, well, you could say the same thing about the last 2 shows depending on how you proceed.
And I'm sure it's one of those things where like COVID and production schedules like threw a wrench into timings. Because like imagine in this where we would have gotten WandaVision, and then we would have gotten Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness relatively quickly after it.
Yep.
And then we would have gotten Loki. Like, I don't know if that was the original plan or whatever, but like it just feels like it's one of those that's, again, it just doesn't mean anything because like we don't know the impact of any of the other shows.
Especially for a franchise that depends so heavily on having a specific timeline.
Right.
Like, that's one of the biggest differences between the success of Marvel and the failure of DC.
Get wrecked, DC.
in the world of films is Marvel has had a huge timeline planned out since 2008, basically. Well, more like 2009. But whereas DC has just sort of been floundering around. So
Janine, what do you got for us?
Well, speaking of DC, in the one thing they've done right,
For now.
we got. Yeah, obviously up to this point.
So far.
So far.
We got a Shazam 2 teaser. And it was just like 20 seconds of seeing the new costume and Zachary Levi being quippy. But I'm pumped. I really.
Shazam is the only DC movie I have ever liked.
What? No Wonder Woman?
Well, okay, Wonder Woman is pretty
Wonder
cool,
Woman,
but
yes.
primarily for like the context behind the character of someone in power being a female.
But I think one thing both of those two movies also have a little more in common is they kind of follow a little more of the Marvel, storytelling guide more so than the standard DC. Like they incorporate good amounts of humor alongside their plot points, which make them a little more enjoyable, I guess.
Mass market.
Better marketing, more broader audience. And also just DC can get so dark, you need those breaks.
Absolutely.
I never saw Shazam.
Okay, well, you should, because
it's actually a
hilarious
worth it movie.
And it's Zachary Levi.
Yeah, it's one that I've only ever heard good things about it, and like we have HBO Max, so like I could just watch it.
You should probably watch it. It's a good one.
I just never gotten around to it.
There is one part that I'm like, okay, this is obnoxious, but like is one small piece that it's. If I wasn't as critical, I'd probably just gloss over it. But I don't know. DC has a lot of potential. I mean, bring in Dwayne Johnson as Black Adam potentially.
Well, that's
I think that's going to be
the
a
Rock
wonderful...
Johnson to you.
Dwayne the Rock, future president of the United States, Dwayne the Rock Johnson.
That's one celebrity president I would be relatively okay with.
But that movie has so much potential just because obviously Dwayne has a good balance to him in terms of his his acting background of humor and seriousness and obviously action, that I think that movie is potentially going to be wonderful, but still DC, so we don't know yet. Till they throw in a weird character like Cheetah, or I don't know. Depends on who his villain is, okay?
As long as they stay in the vein of the first movie, it'll be good.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I'm hoping for.
Shame.
I just want the best for Zachary Levi.
Don't we all? That's why you should be in the MCU instead. More growth potential.
Where's the lie?
Bring him in.
He can do both. Maybe he should just be Adam. We still haven't seen him yet, so.
And then to lead us into our top 3, we are getting not 1, but 2 Tiger King series based around the life of Joe Exotic. One coming out on Peacock with John Cameron Mitchell as Joe Exotic, Dennis Quaid as Rick Kirkham, Kate McKinnon as Carol Baskin, and a lot of other people. And then CBS is making one with Nicolas Cage.
I like how that is
2 completely different ends of the spectrum.
well, it's like everyone wanted Nick Cage to play Joe Exotic. Like that was like as soon as that thing ends, there's like possible movie deals. Everyone's like Nick Cage, and now it's happening.
I don't understand that. I don't see it.
Really?
Really?
There were some really
And-
good like mock-ups that people did.
Mhm.
And
Like the
like I was never really super impressed by the Joe Exotic, whatever the show was. Like
Tiger King.
I watched it, but I just wasn't. It didn't leave a big impression with me, so I've just always been pretty neutral on it.
So I can't wait for this news or for this to happen. I know we were talking about that on Twitter, but I am so excited for this. Like, do I think they're going to be like peak TV? No, but like I really anticipate this just being a hot mess, and that's what I'm here for with Tiger King.
I mean, Tiger King itself was just a hot mess, and it
Mhm.
like it's not going to be good, but it's going to get money. That's which is all they care about. So it's going to be on that vein. It's like everyone that watched, Tiger King has to watch these, both of them.
I'm just so excited. Like, especially 'cause, like these are taking more of a fictional approach, so like it's gonna be more like it's gonna be even more out there than the documentary.
Is that possible?
And so that's what I'm wanting.
that's
They
so
could
far out there
easily
because
take it even further.
Yeah.
But it does depend on how believable, it's quote unquote believable. Like, I mean, they can make it more extreme. It just depends on how cheesy they want to make it.
the
they can
documentary
easily-
is barely believable.
Right.
And that's why I can't wait.
Like,
Like, what's it gonna be? Like, and I've said before, like, if I was a writer, like Tiger King would scare me because I don't think I could write fiction better than that. And like now we're getting fiction about it.
oh, are you kidding? These writers, I guarantee you, are gonna take this material and run with it.
Right.
They just
And, yeah,
are
and
probably
I've
gonna
said
eat
this
it up
before,
and
like,
run with it.
The context for that is I'm also like, not a good writer. So like there you go. So that's like me being like, I don't think I could jump off that cliff and parachute. Yep.
These
couldn't,
people are going
scared.
to.
But
I
yes.
promise you.
And so that's what
They're
I'm
gonna take it and run.
right. And that's exactly what I'm saying. That's exactly what I'm excited about. Is like we're getting this barely believable story that is now getting fiction. And so
Yeah.
and it could be anything.
And it will be anything and everything.
And I also really hope that these come out within like a week of each other. That's really what I want.
Just a lockdown part 2.
I'm not sure who I trust more with this story. Because it's CBS
I want
and
Colbert
NBC.
to be in the CBS one.
See,
I
now
want
I
Colbert
would
in
watch it for
everything.
that alone, for that
Yeah.
scene alone.
Colbert should have a cameo in everything.
Yeah. I think we can agree on that.
Okay, so are there any other documentaries that you have seen, or alternatively, any COVID events that you think would make a great scripted series?
I mean,
You're trying to make me relive the trauma of the last year? Thanks, Shani.
Well, I'm classifying Tiger King as a COVID event as well.
mean,
so
it was,
take
but
that as you will.
but now I have to try to remember other things from COVID.
So I got one
Yeah.
ready to go from when I saw this in the show notes earlier. And that is a la Space Force. I want a Dr. Fauci making the vaccine, clearly tongue in cheek. But like, that's what I want is Dr. Fauci CDC drama, like a la
Yeah.
Space Force.
I mean, it's still continuing. We've got emails now or something. I don't know.
yeah.
Something like that showed up in the news this week or something. I avoid those things at all costs. But
So yeah, so that's my big one. I think that'd be really funny. I think it's a good way of doing a like one-off workplace drama.
Yeah. for me, I mean, the only documentary that's sort of sticking out in my mind right now is my octopus teacher, but I don't necessarily know if I would want to fictionalize it because so much of the impact from it comes from it being a true story documentary style thing. Like the big impact is from seeing the real footage that he captured and stuff. Like I would just leave it as it is. But that's really the only nonfiction thing in recent times that has stood out to me. It would have to be really well done as a fictional story to be good. So
I don't know. I think like a dramatization of UN leaders dealing with Trump.
that would just make me depressed.
I mean, a little bit. Just, as American, make me depressed. As a world citizen, make me really happy.
Yeah.
One world, one people.
That's a terrible route to go down, Cameron.
I'm just saying, Flag Smashers made some good points.
It's kind of like the there's an anime that kind of does something similar around like the Axis powers. What's it called? Hitalia? I think. But they kind of something similar. It's like they have characters representing the primary Axis powers and how they interact with each other. I think that'd be interesting. Just like a character that a dramatized character that is a personification of the nation, not necessarily their leadership during COVID.
Did you share one already, Shanine?
No.
Okay, that sounds like it. Didn't think you had. And I was like,
I was trying to think of all the crazy things that happened because there were so many. And you remember those killer wasps that were a thing for like 2 days and then kind of just no one ever spoke of them ever again?
I'm going to find one when I'm in Japan.
Because they didn't take off. Yeah.
They hit the Northwest and then bye.
I mean, the whale population was just like very happy for those first couple of months of COVID lockdown because there was no sound pollution and no boats and no people to bother them. So I'd make a documentary about that.
Okay. So that tying that in with what Shanine said about the murder hornets, I want a like Zootopia style, like animated style show about animals, like getting to have fun because humans are in lockdown.
I mean, that was a big thing, like here in Montana.
Yeah, dolphins in Venice, like all that kind of thing.
Like throughout the parks and everything, like highways. Since while we were on shutdown, like certain areas that are kind of more wildernessy but still populated, like had a huge influx of like deer and stuff, like like not differentiating. Now it's like we're reclaiming, and they're just like in the streets, far more than usual. I guess a documentary on the whatever the big ship in the canal.
Oh yeah.
In the Suez.
Yeah. In the Suez. Yeah. Would be fun. But yeah, just animals retaking, like coming back in, becoming really aggressive. Oh yeah.
As we get ready for our top 3 list of the week, we have some announcements. We got our streams going on. And so we can do the same thing that we've done every week for the past couple of weeks. We want to go in order about what we're up to, that kind of thing.
Okay, I'm streaming Pokemon Snap on Tuesday.
What
Diablo?
areas are you
Oh.
in now?
So many. I don't know. I can't remember what they're all called. Like desert and forest and ocean and under the ocean. All the places.
And we got Tyranitar last time in the desert, and it was hype.
Yes.
And hopefully Shanine's stream will be featuring a new look. Hopefully.
Much excited.
Much
Yay.
excited.
Hers is a lot more further along than yours, Cameron.
Let's see how it is.
Emma's might be a little farther along than yours, but we're getting there, okay? Mine's not even started, so. But I'll be streaming Diablo 3 on Wednesday. Switch to Wizard, and I'm sticking with it now.
Woohoo! And I will be streaming on Thursday. More Danger Ocean because I like my Danger Ocean. I did some prep this week, so I actually know what I'm going to be doing on Thursday instead of just sort of floundering around. So I have a plan for Thursday this time around. And I found more copper, so I don't have to go, I need copper. And y'all have to sit there and watch me go hunting for copper.
That was me for about an hour and a half looking for diamond.
And then I gave Cameron some Twitter advice.
It's very helpful.
And it was just like, if you're in the mushroom forest, you're safe. You're gonna be fine. But yeah, so I actually know what I'm gonna be doing on Thursday. It's this Danger Ocean survival planet. So yeah.
And then for me, I decided to take a staycation on Friday. And so I'm planning to do a lot of streaming. So I might stream Thursday night. We'll see. I'm kind of doubtful on that one. But then I'm planning to stream a good chunk of the day Friday, and then probably some on Saturday and or Sunday, depending on what my work schedule allows, since I will have to be working this weekend. And so.
So you get Friday, but you have to work sometime on the weekend.
Well, I'm just taking Friday, kind of coincidentally.
Oh,
but,
okay.
But then I might be taking a half day either next week or the week after to make up for working the weekend. And so we'll see what happens then as well. But probably playing some Magic and then some more God of War. This is the plan right now for some points in that. We'll try to get a more of a schedule out before we actually get to Friday. But yeah, so that's our stream schedule for this upcoming week. Then for our recurring events, no D&D this weekend. Instead, we will be continuing our D&D campaign on June 19th. That's that weekend. Next Saturday, or 2 Saturdays from now. And so hopefully everybody can come back for that. And then we have our next book club, as Emma mentioned earlier, Not All Who Spiritually Wander Are Lost, on June 24th. And so, yeah, it's a quick one. I'm glad that this book is I felt so ahead getting the book earlier this time.
I feel because I feel like the period, actual number of weeks in between since our last one is shorter because the month ends on a Wednesday.
Yeah. So those are the big things that we're up to. Stay tuned. Social media, Discord, all those things for other announcements as they come up. And so let's get into our top 3 list of the week. We are doing our favorite or best adaptations from one media type to another. And as always, of course, the first rule of top 3s are that there are no rules. Chris, this is your week. So
it's my week.
I just decided that because you've been going first through all the things. So.
Oh, okay.
So what is your number 1?
My number 1 is Avatar: The Last Airbender 2 comics.
Take that off my list.
Oh, got him. I'm sorry, and you were struggling to find that third. I do apologize.
Yeah. I ended up coming up with another one. So
okay. But yeah, I mean, you can kind of see them. There's my 5 complete volumes there behind me. I've enjoyed just the continuation of the stories for one, but also it's quick. It's such a good platform for a continuation. because you don't, obviously it doesn't take as much work. And you can tell just as much in depth of a story, or kind of get that character development or additional background on the characters. And I think they did a really good job.
So my number one, I'm trying to decide where we're going to go, is The Hunger Games. And so specifically The Hunger Games, the first movie, I think
Still
is
mad about the third book.
yeah. Yeah. So yeah, specifically that first one.
Yeah.
And I've said before, I really think this is one of the best adaptations, in the sense that it takes a lot of the core ideas and the things that it changes. It makes a lot of sense for adapting to a movie from a book.
Yeah.
So whereas the first book is a lot more about like Katniss in her own head, what's she thinking, what's going on. The movie becomes the game show, and it's more about the spectacle of it. So we can see it more from like the Capitol's perspective. And while obviously a big change, I think that that's the type of change that makes a lot of sense when you're going from one type of medium to another.
And it was the kind of change that they did well in a positive like way.
Yeah, definitely agree. And yeah, and there's like, one of the things with the book is there's a lot of Katniss just knowing things because, you know, she lived in this world. But I think like the fourth time when we meet like the Tracker Jackers or whatever, and it's like, oh, those are Tracker Jackers. Those do blah, blah, blah. Like we really just couldn't get Katniss to deliver that exposition. But like having that type of thing through the dial or through the game show style.
Announcer.
Yeah, I think was a really cool way of like tying that in and making that all work.
Yeah.
So. Shanine, what's your number one?
Okay. My number one, probably to nobody's surprise, is The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. Book to movie.
I stayed away from
book.
that one because I didn't like it.
I love
Or else
that movie.
I'd agree with, like, I definitely agree with you.
They did a great job with the first one.
Yeah.
Yes, the first one is great.
But then they just didn't keep up and like weren't putting things out enough time. But I think that, and then obviously with the original actors aging to the extent,
I think it's more difficult.
It made it really hard on them.
Yes. But no, this one is great. And I had almost the whole movie memorized. Probably still do. But it's great.
Absolutely. My number one would be, in my humble opinion, the best adaptation ever of Pride and Prejudice. And that would be the internet video blog known as the Lizzie Bennet Diaries. Because I was in love. Before then, I never understood the story of Pride and Prejudice. Could not get into Jane Austen because it was too old-timey. And then the genius that is Hank Green spurred on this idea of taking it, modernizing it, and turning it into a video blog internet thing. And it like changed my view of classical literature and was like, this does make sense. To like high school me or whatever. And I loved it. And it's what got me into the more classical literature stuff. So yeah.
One of the things I like, and I've said this before, is that like I really enjoy when someone mentions something that I've never heard of, but other people are like, "Oh yeah,
Okay.
that is a great choice." I'm like, the internet, it's a great place.
Lizzie Bennet Diaries.
I'm gonna put a link to this in the host rec page of Discord because I highly recommend people watch it.
So good.
Because it really like is one of those things that like I'd seen Pride and Prejudice movies before, but could never grasp the storyline. And then I watched this and was like, I actually get this now, and I can go back and like it was put in the context of, again, teenage me is modern day, whatever. So then there were contexts. So, but yeah, this will be going in just for people to. I recommend people watching it because it's also fun and just lighthearted and pretty easy to find. So.
Chris, kick it back to you.
My next is Magic the Gathering, the trading card game, to D&D module. Specifically, the Guilds of Ravnica portion. Did such a good job. I love using those things or incorporating them into certain campaign elements or storytelling elements. Also, Ravnica is just awesome. The guilds are so unique.
That's one that I'd considered putting on mine, and then I was like, I feel like a poser because I haven't actually bought or played with any of that.
Oh,
I just like that it exists.
I mean, you have access to it on D&D Beyond, so you could at
Right.
least look at it. But yeah, I love the idea of, and possibly spoiler kind of maybe, you guys may interact with a city that very much is just Ravnica, but I don't know. But I like the world building in that and how it came over to D&D specifically, and how you have like all these different factions that ultimately work together and against each other to run a city or a government of some sort.
Of some sort.
Maybe. But yeah, I love that. I the Theros one was a little was cool too, but definitely the Ravnica one was definitely one that I was very happy that they made an official module for.
For my number 2, I wanted to do something comic books, and just kind of doing like an MCU movie felt too general. Yeah. And so I decided to do the 90s X-Men, which was my touch point into superheroes, into X-Men specifically. It's a lot of my go-to version of those characters is the 90s X-Men version. And then while I did not know this at the time, one of the things that's also very cool about it is that it is extremely faithful to a lot of the comics that were going on at that time. And so it really is, for a lot of the arcs, a very direct representation of like comic book to screen. And I really like that idea. And again, with a lot of those being those iconic things for me, just actually knowing that was not just cool TV, but it was cool comic book stories that they translated and brought into cool TV. And so. Shanine, what do you got?
Okay, my next one is Anastasia, from an animated movie to a Broadway musical.
From real life to an animated movie.
To then a Broadway musical.
Yes. But yeah, I grew up watching Anastasia. It's been my favorite animated movie forever. And seeing it on Broadway kind of felt like they made the musical for all of those childhood fans. Like it was a grown-up version of Anastasia, and like they made it more historical and less fantastical. But still like kept in all the beloved songs and like added a few more like heartfelt ones, and yeah, so good.
Since we're on the topic of childhood movies and Broadway musicals, I mentioned this one earlier, but my number 2 is the Lion King Broadway show, because that will forever be one of my all-time favorite Broadway shows, and it's beautiful, and like the puppetry is fantastic, and like brings in that like the natural art of a lot of from different regions of Africa, like Tanzania and just around there, as well as those languages, while still encompassing the sort of lighthearted feel of the movie. So that's my number 2. Also, the drums are great for the Broadway show. Lots of drums.
And the puppetry is fantastic.
Yes.
Chris, bringing us home.
My last one is from novel to animated movie, kind of. Tales from Earthsea, which is a Studio Ghibli movie, but not Miyazaki. Well, not Hayao Miyazaki. It's Goro Miyazaki, his son. One of his works. And honestly, I think the animation is wonderful, but also I don't know, it's better on screen than book is all right. Book has great elements, but I find it lacking, but that's just my opinion. But yeah, that's a great adaptation, and I definitely recommend it if you like Ghibli.
I just did a Google image search, and this protagonist is the most Ghibli-looking protagonist I've ever seen.
Really?
Like, not as like a bad thing, but like it's just like the
Right. I mean, Ghibli has a very unique like
it's a very specific style.
very specific
this,
style.
And this looks exactly like that style.
I mean, it follows along his style, but it's still very much like looking at it, you can tell it's not how. It's a little more straightforward. Obviously, this follows the specific plot line of a story as well, but yeah. But the fantasy elements of Ghibli are definitely there. Especially the clothing.
For my number 3, I mean, we're gonna hit on Pokemon. You know, one of the biggest entertainment franchises out there, and it kind of feels weird to be like this is an adaptation when it's like all of these things kind of all came out in conjunction and worked together. Maybe a little bit less so here in the States, but I want to call out specifically the original Pokemon manga, focused on Red. And while like Red is like the main character in the game, like Red in the manga is way different. And I love that version of the character. I love the as a story, I love how it's way darker than they would allow Pokemon to be now.
Mm-hmm.
And I love, and like basically everyone's a bad guy. And
Yeah, it's about the exploitation and abuse of animals. Come on.
well, yeah, but there's also
Yeah.
like being a Pokemon trainer is almost like a mythical power in the manga, where like there's a scene where like Lance just walks up to a dragon type and now it follows him. Like just because it's like a power that he has to like commune with dragon types. And so it's less of the like I spent the time to level up this Pokemon and more of just like this mythical characteristic kind of thing. And so like just the take on it is so different than the rest of the vibe of Pokemon. And then also like I said, I love this take on Red where he like smuggles Pokeballs into the Safari Zone and then captures like hundreds of Pokemon and basically wipes out the Safari Zone just because he can.
Why
And
not?
it's like,
I mean, it's not like. Can you imagine if the games put a limited number of Pokemon in there, like they weren't technically random?
right.
That'd crack me up. They should do that for a game.
Yeah, it's such an interesting take. And again, I highly recommend. I think I'd read some of it when Pokemon was first coming out. And then in college, I'm sure not quite legally, found a bunch of it online that I read through. But yeah, highly recommend. Go check it out. Shanine, what's your number 3?
Okay, my last one is maybe a bit of a stretch, but no rules. So
No
I'm
rules.
going with it. Loving Vincent is an animated movie about the life of Vincent van Gogh.
That's a
And-
reasonable. I'd say it counts.
I mean, it's biography memoir
Especially-
to an animated film.
Yeah.
So
The animation style is based on Van Gogh's paintings.
Oh.
So
Even better.
it's art and real life to animation, and it's beautiful. Highly recommend.
I had not heard of this.
interesting.
Pretty sure it's
I
on
mean, I
Netflix.
feel like we're coexisting.
He looks a lot like that character from Doctor Who.
Oh, and I forgot, but
Imagine
I'm.
Oh,
Right.
coincidence.
Nice.
What do you know?
What do you know? It all ties together. Okay. Emma, what is your number 3?
My number 3 is I feel like Shanine and I are on similar brainwaves tonight, probably in the way of like from one adaptation to another. But in this context, mine is adapting a literal series of paintings into a TV series. And that is Tales from the Loop, which is an Amazon Prime series that they did based on a series of paintings by Swedish artists who did a bunch of like drawings or paintings on just these random sort of futuristic pieces of machinery in like modern day times. So like a random robot out in the middle of a field or whatever. And Amazon Prime just took these random paintings and this coffee table book that he had done and turned it into a TV show. And it was just like, it's each episode is its own little story about this little town in the middle of nowhere. And it's like, they're all connected in these little ways. But it's just this fun little science fiction anthology, if you will. And it's fun because they would base some of the scenes or shots off of the paintings or the drawings. I think they're drawings. But they also had sort of an amount of creative freedom to do what they wanted and sort of warp the story around these drawings. So, yeah, that's my number 3.
Listeners, as always, let us know what your favorite adaptations are. You can do that comment section, social media, all of those places. And then, Emma, what is our top 3 for next week and why?
Our top 3 for next week is your top 3 people or characters you think would make terrible boat captains and why. So, for example, Mothman would be a terrible boat captain because he would just crash his boats into lighthouses while trying to get the light at the top of the lighthouse. That's an example. And it is the top 3 because I was watching a TikTok that made me wonder about it. So I'm curious to get everyone's ideas.
I've already been brainstorming what mine are. I'm trying to come up with good ones that fit the criteria laid out by Mothman.
I mean, if you have an extraneous explanation for why that isn't immediately obvious, that's fine. It's just that's just an example.
Sounds awesome. And we'll get posts out and all that stuff. So listeners, you can let us know who you think would be a terrible boat captain and why. But until next time, you can find us as One Geek 411 on our social media, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. You can join our Discord server if you want to chat between shows or shoot us an email at 1stgeek411@gmail.com. You can also check out our Redbubble store for merch. And then you can watch live on Twitch and find our videos on YouTube. You can rate and subscribe wherever it is that you listen to podcasts, and then check out our show notes on our website, onegeek411.com. And then you can find us through our personal social media, minus Humar Whithill.
Minus I am not prepared with an I.
I'm the Hoot and Howl on Twitter and Hoot and Howl Tales, TALES on Instagram.
And I'm not so foreign.
And it's been a great week.
Wash your hands.
Read a book.